All right, welcome back to the NoFX podcast. I'm your host, Izlain, and I am joined by my co-host, Kirk.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Not bad. How you been?
Pretty good. It's been a little more than a couple weeks since we recorded last. We had some real-life stuff get in the way, but we're here. You're still getting, I think the last episode came out at the end of February, so we might not quite get two in this month, but it's going to be close. By a day or two, maybe. Either way, this week we are talking about dual commander mechanics, essentially partner. But because there are so many different things that are like partner, but that aren't actually partner, partner with, etc. We'll get into those. Little history lesson upcoming. But we just kind of wanted to. It's kind of a thing that's been on my mind because of recent spoilers. From sets that are upcoming that have added more to that, and then just what we've seen happen in the last 6, 7, 8 years, give or take. So before we get into the main topic, let's break the ice a little bit, talk about what we've been doing the last few weeks since we spoke last. Even though we speak a lot more often, they don't have to know that.
Secret.
So what sort of magic projects you've been working on, Kirk?
So the big thing I've been learning is doing video editing, just trying to figure that out. I've got some friends who I'm helping with getting some things up and going at their local game store. And the other big thing I've been working about is everyone's favorite mechanic is stickers. I've been learning how the heck the sticker mechanic works. There are at least one card that's pseudo relevant for CDH. I don't even know what the actual name is. Underscore Goblin, I think. I don't know. Anyway, there's at least one card that's somewhat relevant for CDH. I had no clue how the sticker mechanic worked. I had largely ignored stickers and tickets, guilty as charged, so I had to figure it out and learn it. So figured out which sticker sheets I want, and here we are. How about yourself? What have you been up to?
The big hotness right now, at least in Twitter and places where I pay attention to the Magic stuff, is a week ago, not even a week ago, Wizards of the Coast announced that they're officially recognizing Oathbreaker as a format. I've known about it for years. I think it was when right around the time Brawl came out, I want to say, is when people brewed up or came up with Oathbreaker. I know that because prior to Brawl, like, people weren't really paying attention to Planeswalkers as commanders because there was only the few, and some people wanted to use other ones and whatever. And either way, Brawl enabled basically any planeswalker to be used as a commander that was standard legal, which was its limitation. But nobody cares about Brawl. We're not here to talk about Brawl. Oathbreaker was created by some folks, and I guess, yeah, so it's a format now. They're not doing any sanctioned events or anything, according to the website, but they recognize it, and they're willing to put it on their website as a format so people can kind of get pointed in the direction. I could put the links in the description of this video as well. There's an Oathbreaker website that has the rules, a ban list, etc. The ban list is basically the CDH ban list, but like there's a few fast mana rocks and like shit like Adnos and Dark Ritual are banned because they don't obviously want those as a signature spell. So, but yeah, Oathbreaker is basically pick a planeswalker. It's your commander. It's the same color identity stuff, but you get a signature spell, which is essentially any spell in your instant or sorcery that is in your commander's color identity goes in a special zone and can be cast for the normal cost, but you have to have your planeswalker on the field because it's the one casting the spell. And then it has the same sort of rules. If it goes into anywhere, it goes back to the zone, and then also has the commander tax individually from your commander. So a lot of people have been talking about that. I actually just played a game today. Spoilers, if you've ever caught... he's been on my channel a lot. I've been on his a lot. Veil of Death MTG. Death invited me to play some Oathbreaker already because he's jumping on that hype train, and I'm probably going to be doing something on the channel soonish as well. But we played it.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. It's fun. I brewed up Elminster, which kind of lame, I guess, because he's already somebody that could be your commander. But he spoke to me for whatever reason, and I made a pretty interesting list. Managed to get a win, so I did something right, I suppose.
Yeah, spoilers, everyone. Izlain wins the game.
Nice. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've been brewing some other stuff, working on other projects as always, but I won't go into any further detail because that will
Hmm,
eat up a lot of time.
fair
So
enough.
yeah, cool. With that said, I guess we'll jump into our main topic. So I guess we should set the stage a bit for what has come before to get us to where we are now. So going all the way back to 2016, which is not really that long ago, but it is long enough ago. 7 years is a while.
A drop in the bucket to some and a lifetime to others, right?
Right. Depending on how long you've been on this planet, that's either not long, that's yet last Tuesday, or it's like you were a little kid. For me, that was the year that I met my partner. Uh, that's about the only other big thing I can think of that happened that year. But yeah, we're still together, so 7 years is quite a while.
Yeah, likewise for me, it's about around the time I tied the knot. So
Well, there we go. We're old men with old wives, and
he said it, not me.
I have my doubts that mine will listen to this. So if she does, hi,
Likewise.
honey, love you.
Yeah, mine will ignore it and say, What else is on? Is The Bachelor on? Is The Voice on?" Something like that instead.
Right. So again, if we go all the way back to 2016, that particular year's Commander precons came with something that was new. It was 4-color legendary creatures. That's the face creatures on those decks. I believe there was 5 of them. Obviously 4 colors, so each one would be sans a color. And the deck that I ended up getting out of that was led by Saskia. So she was sans blue. Her thing was kind of cute, but not great. But that came with Timna and Tana to make a 4-color sans blue partnership. And that was the first time we saw the partner mechanic. They were not the intended leaders of the decks, but they were put in as a way to give you some flexibility. Same with all the other precons, where there's always some other legendary that is could be the general if you chose based on the
Right.
precon.
Right. Yep. They always have that little. Here's what the deck is. Here's the signature piece, the picture, the fame, the frame, the whatever. And then inside the 99, here's some other really incredible cards that, use these instead if you feel like changing it a little bit.
Honestly, some of the most powerful cards printed like ever, but I don't think anybody really realized it at the time.
Right. No, not at all. For Commander especially. I mean, I still have some of the old ones that I've never unboxed. Like this one's the one that came with Crom. And yeah, I remember when they came out, it was like, oh, that's seems decent, whatever, and moved on with life. But here we are now.
Honestly, like when I opened it, Timna and Tana, like I broke it apart and used cards for it for other things. They sat and I had a Timna for probably like 5 years before I put it somewhere, without even really realizing the sheer power of it. Granted, part of that was because I wasn't playing CDH the entire time, but then also just I think nobody really realized immediately. I mean, people who were into CDH at the time probably figured it out pretty quickly, but I remember just playing at LGSs and in the local playgroups and stuff, and nobody was playing them. They were just considered
same.
like the side thing for that deck, or like, oh, I can make a 4-color thing that's kind of like what this deck is doing. But it took a while. I think eventually people figured it out because, I mean, obviously the Timna Thrasios and the Timna Crom, Blue Farm, just any of those paired together. Not all of them. There were some that were kind of lesser used, and but then all it took, like Silas is a good example. Silas didn't get used for shit. Like nobody cared about Silas until Roger was printed, and then it was like, oh, we just have him for colors, and this deck goes super fast.
Yeah, to some extent, Dargo and Silas is another deck that saw some play around that same era, and it's the exact same thing. It was more, I mean, Dargo is a sack outlet you can use, and Silas is for colors and really nothing else, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves as far as some of the stuff we're gonna be talking about here shortly, but just saying, some of those older commanders were kind of underused, like
Right.
the one.
I mean, do you remember
what's the Simic one that taps for like colorless? Like that one was never very good. And then I'm having trouble remember. So like Tana, honestly, like there was Blood Pod, but like outside of that, I don't think Tana's very good. I've seen her in other things, but Ikra's okay, but like not great either. Like the big ones for Thrasios, Tymna, and Chrom, probably the Bruce to a lesser extent, but he's mainly there for colors, and a lot of it was just at that point in time there was only those four or five commanders that were printed in 4 color. Prior to that there was some Nephilim, but they weren't legendary creatures, so they weren't legal. People would rule 0 them and whatever, but like it was either 5 color or 1, 2, or 3 color. There was no 4. So Wizard was trying to fill in a gap that didn't exist, and for that I'm cool with.
Were you in a play group that allowed the Nephilim to be commanders and let people rule 0 and play them, or not?
That was before my time.
There, I was, and we had, I think, one person out of everyone that I played with that was even remotely interested, and we're like, yeah, go nuts. We don't really care, but I don't think I think he abandoned it shortly after building it because he just said it just didn't feel right. So anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit of a stickler for the rules when it comes to that. Like, I don't really want to have to rule 0 something either. Like, I'd rather just play it. Like, I tend to follow the ban list. Unless we're playing no ban list, I tend to follow the ban list. So
same.
Generally speaking, I would rather just have more options for 4 color. So I guess the way that they did it was, instead of just putting 4 new or 5 new commanders into the format and have those be the only ones, they instead decided to also print 2 partners per, so it's 10 partners from the original pairings to make those. But then the way partner is worded, anybody who's been playing for a while is going to know this, but for the uninitiated, partner is worded that as long as both commanders have partner, they can be each other's partner. So it's not limited to that original 4-color pairing. It can be any 4-color pairing. So obviously that's where you can get Tymna out of one deck, Thrasios out of the other deck, smash them together. Now you have Sans Red, and you can go nuts, or whatever other combination you want to come up with. And that ends up being a lot more combinations than just the 5 if they would have just kept the face commanders and not had anything else. So in a sense, I think it was a good idea just to be able to give this sort of modular. Not only that, it makes them all kind of chase cards in a sense. Obviously they've been reprinted since, so they're not so bad now, but there was a time where it was like a little harder to get a Tymna or whatever, a little more expensive at least. So eventually people figured this stuff out, and it kind of got to a point where it was like, okay, now there's a lot more combinations, a lot more 4-color pairing options. But then it kind of turned into a negative in a sense that, like, yes, they are powerful, but then it ended up being the best way to do it, and people would kind of gatekeep and or snub other decks, really, just because it was like, well, if you're not playing Blue Farm, you're not playing the best deck, or if you're not playing Mad Farm, or whatever, whatever the thing was at the time. For a while, it was like the Flash Hulk thing. If you're not on Tymna Thrasios Flash Hulk, like, you're doing it wrong, so get the fuck out of here, scrub.
Yeah, your deck's automatically invalidated. We don't want to play against it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's the unfortunate, ugly side of CDH, or the early CDH at least, was the old gatekeeping part of it, for sure.
However, I will say that at that time, they were probably sort of right. Like, there wasn't really... You still had your Zers, and I don't even know if Kess was out by then. I don't think so. That might have been the next year. So, remember. Like, quite a few of the things that we consider staple commanders and top end didn't exist yet. So back then, you're looking more at, like, Carador and Boomweaver and, like, Zer with, Doomsday or whatever he was trying to do, and then... people making these partner decks. So
old Nib Mizzet or something,
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the partners were better than pretty much everything that was out there at the time. They have definitely power crept everything to kind of catch up since then. And then they've also, which good segue, they've tried to fix the partner problem. And for a while it's been kind of controversial because people think that Thrasios some people think that, like, Thrasios is too powerful, should be banned, blah, blah, blah. Or I don't want to play against... I'm that kind of person sometimes, too. It's not so much that I don't or won't play against a Thrasios player. I just get bored watching the same fucking Seedborn Muse and every single buddy's end step, untap everything, tap everything, look at a bunch of cards. Oh, now it's my turn to do it again. Oh, it's my turn to do it again. And yes, you just kill the Seedborn Muse, but it's still a headache.
I have to say on that one, Seedborn Muse is easily one of my absolutely least favorite Magic the Gathering cards of all time. It's busted. It's boring when you're playing against it to watch the player go, at your end step, blah, blah, blah. At your end step, blah. It gets so tiresome. I mean, there are casual groups that don't like extra turn spells because they think they're abusive and annoying. Seedborn Muse is like an extra turn every turn cycle for every... It's so annoying. I hate the card. That's just my personal preference. Continue.
So, like, I have a deck with Thrasios at the helm. It's not a Thrasios deck, per se, because it's more of a hidden commander, but it still runs Thrasios, still runs Seedborn Muse. And I have had games where I got to do that, and it is pretty satisfying when you're the one that's doing it. It's just terrible for everyone else. So, you know, in that case of people wanting to be courteous to one another, yeah, it's pretty high on the, like, this is not courteous to do to people, but it's also high on the, this is powerful, so I need to do it. So I get it.
I mean, I can say I hate the card. I still play it in a few decks, but if it got banned, I wouldn't bat an eyelash. Anyway, go on.
Sure. So the next thing they tried to do was fix it with partner with. So it's partner, but instead of two partners with partner can be partners, it's this guy is partnered with this guy. And it first came out with Battle Bond, and a lot of them weren't... I don't know if any of them were actually legendary, but they had the abilities... Yeah, I think they were, because there was like that...
I think they were all legendary, weren't they?
No, because there were some that were not, because I remember going to that pre-release, and I pack-pulled like those two dogs that were Is It, and I don't remember what they were called, but... there was also like the Trumpeteer or whatever. It was like a white soldier and then a black soldier. That this is Battle Bond. This is before like the ones that have come since then that were a little more popular. I just remember it because it was designed so that I could have a card in my deck, he could have a card in his deck, but it's two-headed giant, so I could play this and then he could tutor out his piece from his deck. So in that sense, it was a cool design space. We thought it was cool, and there were some that were legendary. Like there was the Golgari ones where the black guy like hits you and deals half your life or whatever. And the green guy must be blocked by two creatures or whatever, so he can kind of clear the way for his buddy. So there were some that were legendary, but most of them weren't super powerful. I don't remember having a desire to build any of them. It was just kind of a cool mechanic for this specific set. But then a few years later, they decided to, I want to say it was 2020? Like was Ikoria, I believe. When...
Looks right. Yep.
The precons, you have one. You might as well show it off.
Yep, there it is. That's the Brawlin and Shabraz, the Gavi Nest Warden. Yep.
Pretty sure that one came with like Fierce Guardianship too.
No, I think Fierce was in a later set, but who can even remember anymore?
Honestly, I think it was that, but I'm not
Well,
not 100%.
Maybe I should crack it open one of these days.
I did, because Brawlin Shabraz is actually one of my most successful CDH decks when I first got into it, but when these first came out, like the guys that I play with on Spell Table now, some of which you've met, a lot of us got these precons and built some of them, and
nice.
It was very, very strong at the time. It's kind of not as strong now, I'd say, compared to some of my other decks, but it's still, I still have it together in paper because I like it that much. It's a fun strategy with the curiosity and whatnot. You put on Brawlin and just go. But yeah, so these ones were a little bit more powerful. In our example here of Brawlin and Shabraz, Brawlin is comes in and he's supposed to be a shark rider, and then Shabraz is a flying shark, but you can see in the artwork that he's got like stapled on fucking wings, so it's kind of silly. And each one of them interchanges with each other, right? And each one of them kind of interchanged with each other in the sense that Brawlin could activate to do something with the shark. I can't remember what he did, but then the shark could give Brawlin flying, and that was kind of cute. But then moreover, they synergized with like wheels, because each one of them, Brawlin, whenever he discards, gets a +1/+1 counter and does damage to each opponent. When the same. Whenever you draw a card on Shabraz, you get a 1/1 counter and gain a life or something like that. So
Yep, gain a life. Yep, and so Brawlin gives target shark gains trample. Ooh,
that's what it was.
exciting.
Yeah, trample. So I mean, on their face they seem kind of innocuous, but you can see where they play together and synergize well. And then there's stuff like what are some of the other ones? Ukima Kazur, which ended up becoming a food chain deck, which is I used to run.
Still run it on occasion. I like that deck, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. There's others, but those are the ones that I remember being. Oh, Paco Halden. That was another one. I still have that one put together too. Those were all very powerful, and on their face they were pretty powerful. But they were not the face commanders, because that one was Gavi, and then they were just some commanders that were in the 99 that could be played and still combined together to make the same colors. So same principles, but because they're limited to each other, you couldn't abuse them to, like, say, put Paco with, I mean,
Ukima or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't work anyway because they were designed to work together. So in a way, it was kind of, like I said, the way that WotC was trying to fix partner by limiting it. And in that sense, then it almost becomes just a singular commander. It is two commanders. You still have the flexibility and blah, 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 but it's just not, it's not the same as OG partner.
No, and it almost became like you picked one of the two. If there was one that was powerful, it almost, with the exception of like Paco Haldan, whatever, that one. Thank you. It became that you basically played one of these as your commander, more or less. The other one was just for the color identity to increase. I mean, the exact same example with Brawlin and Shabraz. I don't know how often you cast the shark, but I know Brawlin is the piece that matters in that deck. So
Brawlin is the piece that matters, but like I did cast a shark because it could get big sometimes.
Yeah, Ukima Kazur, how often do you cast the green guy? It's rare. Yeah, his best attribute was being green, so you could play food chain, and occasionally being a 4-mana creature you could sacrifice to food chain for 5. Right. That was about it.
Yeah, so they were kind of limited in the design because of the way that they worked. So I would say problem solved. If they would have just done this to begin with the 2016 precons, then perhaps we wouldn't even be talking about this episode because it wouldn't be a moot point.
And the only thing, like you alluded to, the problem, I say problem, the downside to it is the lack of creativity for brewing and brewers. If your commander does one thing out of the command zone and you build a deck around it, sure you can do variations, but you're still somewhat limited. Similar with these, you might have two different commanders can do two different things out of the command zone, more or less, that are tied together. But again, you're limited on your design capabilities with that, or your own being able to put your own twist on the mechanic or the design or the architect or the build. So
yeah, and I don't like being limited as a brewer either. Which I guess this is a good place to move into our next one. I'm calling it partner again. Essentially, when Commander Legends came out, it was a fully commander-centric draft experience. So instead of being a precon or a set of precons like the anthologies or any of that, it was, here's cards, go draft them and build weird commander decks with them. And I never did the draft thing. I think it would have been a cool experience, but I didn't do it because at the time, I want to say that was still pandemic. If not, it was still shaky depending on where you were at. If places were open, I don't know if anybody was really doing that. I didn't have the opportunity, so
I think I can't remember honestly if it was that or if I was just too busy doing other stuff in life at that time. But I hear you. I didn't get to draft it either.
I'm not a huge draft guy anyway. I always liked sealed better because then I could just open packs and take my time and build a deck and not have to like worry about somebody stealing the good shit out of my pack. I've done draft, but I'm not a fan. So I think that would have been more fun though because it's Commander and I like Commander better. So, but again, moot point. Didn't get to do it. However, part of the product was a number of new partners. Like a lot, like 30 or something. I don't remember exactly how many, but it was also the first time that I can recall that they made, well, not the first time they made legendary uncommons, but definitely the first time that like we saw legendary or uncommons that were that had the mechanic of partner and that were actually pretty powerful, because there was some of them that were better than the rares.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Malcolm's uncommon,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few, but the one limitation that they did here, I guess this is another attempt at them trying to fix. So they had partner where it was unlimited. They got some pushback on that, I'm sure. This is too powerful. Everybody's playing these. Like, we want more variety. Blah blah blah. So then they were like, okay, let's go the whole opposite route and force you to play these two together, which again, no creativity involved and not exactly perfect. So they were like, hey, you went one way too far, now you went the other way too far. So they're like, okay, we'll meet you in the middle. Now it's partner, you have no limitations, so these can pair with the OG partners as well, but all of them are monocolor, so that there can be no 4-color bullshit and there can be no 5-color bullshit. So it's strictly you're either doing monocolor because there's multiple of the same color in the set, or you could do 2-color because there's plenty of that as well, or you can go back to the OGs and partner them with one of these and get up to 3-color. And that's what people have done. Most notable decks or cards I can think of, like Malcolm, Breaches was one. Tevish, Zot, and Jessica are huge. Arden,
well, Rograk is a big one. So
yeah, I immediately brewed, as soon as the set was spoiled, I immediately brewed Roger Timna. Made a turbo. I already had a Timna deck in mind, but that came out and it was just better. Arguably, Jessica's a better combination than that. They're both very much similar, but a little bit different enough to be not exactly the same, but they still have kind of the same axis that they run on. Krark, Sakashima, like there's a ton. Kodama, there's a lot. There's a lot of partner pairings out there. I built Kodama Tago as a joke because it was Christmas time and it was like rocking around the Kodama tree. And
I put together Malcolm Kedis because I like pirates and it seemed fun at the time.
That's the Malcolm I built Malcolm Timna first and I didn't like it that much. So then I built Malcolm Kedis and I liked it better. Dargo's huge. There's a lot of
I think I have a Dargo Silas deck still built. I see so many different like Grixis Malcolm decks that it's nutty.
And
that one I run into constantly.
For what it's worth, too, the original partners, they were kind of solved like immediately. It was like, these are the best ones. These ones go together. The rest of them suck. And that was pretty much the end of it. In this case, I still don't know if it's completely solved. I still see people busting out weird combos and being like, why are you playing? And then seeing them do stuff. Like, the first time I saw Dargo with, I think it was Jessica, I was like, why? It's mono. Like, why wouldn't you want more colors? And then it just goes burr. And you die. And it was like, okay, I understand fully now why you did this. So, yeah, I think that this was better in the sense that it opened up creativity, but it did limit the colors to where... I'm biased, but I think that 3-color and lower is where all of the creativity lies in the format. When you get to 4-color, it's just piles of good stuff. Same with 5-color. The only real unique thing that goes into any of those is the commanders. In the case of 4-color, it's just those partner pairs, and they're all solved. They're all fucking boring, and I'm not really that excited about it. But when you start getting to the 3-color pairs, where I built, like Tevish Crom, that was awesome. Like, I have most of my lists come from the combination of those partner pairings. More competitive ones, at least.
And I think, like you said, there's still so much brewing in that space alone with either single-colored partners or, doing 2-colored partners or partners with the original OG ones where you're having 3-color builds. There's still quite a bit of brewing that can be done in that space and still come up with some crazy, powerful ideas. I love seeing new brews that I've never faced before. I love, thinking about them. So I'm with you. I think I don't have quite your disdain for 4-color and 5-color decks, but I understand it completely. So,
well, I mean, I have a Nagila list, and I never play it because it's just like, okay, it's going to do the same fucking thing that it always does. And mine's even memey because I put fucking Wolfire in it just to be like, okay, it's unbanned, I'm going to put this in a deck. And it's stupid, but I play it once in a while. It's fine, but I get bored. I miss Golos, too. Like, fuck them for banning Golos. Like,
amen.
Honestly.
That one still is ridiculous to me, but hey, whatever. I guess they have their reasons.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I have a 5-color deck put together, but we haven't quite reached the point where I get to talk about it yet in our list.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think this was kind of going in the right direction. Also, to that note of all the stuff that, where it isn't solved, having been playing the competitive Pauper Commander, that is a big chunk of it too, where a lot of those commanders that came with that set, I would argue that weren't that great. Like, this isn't good for CDH, but at CPDH, they're amazing. Like the Ghost of Pietro Di Ramirez or whatever the fuck his name is, and there's some other ones too, but like some of those pairings, even Malcolm and Dargo see play in those formats too. So like they are that versatile to where they can be good regardless of if you're at the ceiling or the low end of the power scale.
In retrospect, having those both be uncommon is a little maybe ludicrous, but here we are.
Well, the thing too though is you have to remember Wizards prints shit for all of its formats. So now that Oathbreaker's recognized, maybe a few years down the road we'll start seeing some Oathbreaker precons or cards specifically printed to work for that, because I know that they print commons for limited, but they also know that Pauper exists. So like some of that is like, here's some shit that CDH players and casuals are going to be like, meh, but the CPDH players are like, hell yeah. So then that's pretty much every set. That's how I look at sets now too. Is like, okay, this is good for this format, this is good for that format, and blah blah blah. But moving along, I think that this was a step in the right direction, and now I think that what they've been doing lately is a little bit of experimentation, which was a kind of, so they've been doing this for a while now with various mechanics that they introduce that are maybe only Commander legal. They'll sprinkle into a new product, or Eternal legal, or whatever they call it. They'll sprinkle it into, like, so Jumpstart will have like random, brand new cards, and like they're not going into standard, so like we get them, and same with like Infinity and some of the other dumb shit.
Right, like your favorite Muxus is a. Yeah, I think that one was one from Jumpstart, right?
I think you're correct. Yes. And I don't have a problem with Muxus. He's fine. He just blew my mind. That's all. So like they did it with Infinity. There were partners. They're all monocolored. Honestly, when I looked at them, none of them are good. But they're trying to jam some of the other mechanics into other things, so that you get more options. We've also seen, like I said, partner with came one set. Then they popped it into a Commander product. Then they decided to go and do it with their newer stuff that they've been pushing on us for the last couple of years in the Secret Layers. And right. Secret Layers are kind of a hot button issue depending on who you are, especially when they first started, because it was like, okay, Wizards is in the singles market now. This is bullshit. Oh, Wizards is just stealing money from like Altruists or this or that or whatever. Like, oh, they're just trying to blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got their thing. But then also it was kind of a thing where people were pissed. Like when The Walking Dead came out, that was a big deal. People were like trying to boycott Wizards and this and that and the other thing, because I don't want fucking zombie guys in my Magic, even though there's fucking zombies all through the fucking game. And they're just humans. Like, okay, they're dressed up like they were on the TV show, and it's the actual actors and actresses that are represented on the cards. Yeah, but who cares? I mean, the whole game is mechanical, and it's all fantasy, so what difference does it make? They're also always talking about a multiverse, so why can't Earth be part of that?
For sure.
Anyhow.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they going to release the Walking Dead cards in some future set? Like as non-Walking Dead, like the other alternate named variants? They
said that they were going to. It hasn't happened yet, and I think that one, actually, they may have said they weren't going to. Okay. And they said going forward, because there was such a backlash about that, they said going forward that they might, and that they would do it with any of the newer stuff. So, for instance, like, no, let's get to this one. So the next big one that I can remember that had any controversy, because most of the ones were just reprints of cards with cool art. There were reprints that were needed reprints a lot of the times, but they always would put, like, the card that CEDH player really wants here, and then a bunch of casual bullshit that nobody cares about. And you pay $40, you get all four, and then you got the one card you wanted, and the others go in your box, never to see the light of day again.
Right.
But it is what it is. Sometimes the artwork was worth it. I've only bought ones where I personally was going to use all or almost all of the cards, so I haven't bought too many, needless to say. But so again, they had the controversy with Walking Dead. They moved along, and they decided they were going to do the next Universes Beyond, I guess is what they started to call it, and it was for Stranger Things, which was a big deal on Netflix for the last few years. It's kind of dwindling now. I think they're coming towards the end of it. I don't even think I finished it. I was hyped with it for the first couple seasons, and then I just kind of lost interest as much, and who cares now?
I admit I have watched it all. I enjoy it. My wife enjoys watching it, and anything that she and I can mutually agree to watch together without fighting or bickering is a win for me. So good job, Stranger Things, for that. We appreciate it.
I mean, we did that too. Me and my partner did the same, but we both kind of, because there was a kind of a break in between because of pandemic and whatever.
Right.
When it came back, we were less enthused and kind of didn't remember what was going on. So then it was like, do we binge the whole thing again, or do we just pick it up? And we just picked it up, and then it was like, I don't really remember. And yeah, I don't think I watched the last season, but anyways, it was another thing where it was a thing based on TV show. They're bringing these characters into Magic. It doesn't make sense. Wah, wah, wah. But they actually followed through with these and did eventually print the Magic versions of them. So
I'm not sure if they've done all of them yet, but I know they've sprinkled in quite a few. They might have already done all of them.
I think they're all been done. What they've been doing is you have to buy collector's packs, or I think they might be in the list slot as well for set boosters. But yeah, I pack pulled the one that was Hopper, the Boros one that gives you clues on attack. It's like Wormhold, or I can't remember what the hell the name is, but
right.
Anyways, so they actually followed through with that. But my point being is that this was another attempt at them doing a partner with, where in this case they called it Friends Forever, and each one of them could be paired together as Friends Forever, and it was basically the main characters of the show, and then there was like a demon bad guy, and then the land. Like, I have the version of the land that's Magic. It's Havengul Laboratory or something, but it was like secret code, or I don't remember exactly what it was. But
yeah, and these ones were kind of at that in between space between, like you said, like the Brawl and Shabraz partners with versus the original partners partner with whatever other partner you want. This is kind of them again, almost trying to solve or fix the issue without swinging the pendulum again. Each time, like you said, the pendulum is kind of getting closer to where they think it's on a balanced level, so this is kind of swinging it back the other way, maybe a little unbalanced. And this is where I have my,
I was gonna say,
this is where I have my 5-color deck, my Mike and 11 5-color deck. Yay! Anyway,
yeah, so this is kind of where they got it right in a sense of you can mix them together to make 4-color decks. You can make the 5-color. I think most of them were like 3. I think most of them were 2-color, except there was a couple of single colors, and then 11 was 3-color. So you could use a 3-color and a 2-color to make a 5. So they gave you a little bit more brewing capabilities because they weren't tied directly to each other. They were overarching. All of them in the set could be partnered together, but it was still limited to just that card pool. So basically, like the 5-color version that you have is probably the best deck you can make out of them, but there are some other decks that I've seen wander around, but it was kind of a blip on the radar because, again, it's a secret lair. It's a limited time release. You only get them if you get them. Otherwise, you got to pay more on the aftermarket, and it's not something I bought, so I would proxy it if I really wanted to play with it, but not amazing. I know that I did buy the Street Fighter Secret Lair, and they have made the in-universe versions of those too. For instance, like my Zangief is Henrika something or other, and
one does get annoying on Spell Table when you're trying to search them up, and you're like, "What the hell did I just type? That's not what I typed." But then if you hover over it, if you type in Mike, for instance, it pulls up the Ulthelm or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you hover over the artwork, you get Mike. If you type in Mike, yeah, it's kind of a little weird twerk.
Yeah, I always put my
so.
I play Zangief, and I've played Chun-Li and Dalsum, and I put them in as that, and they show up as that, but then the name is the other, so it's kind of confusing.
Right.
But the in-universe things exist so that people can't bitch. I personally want to see the Street Fighter characters because I think they're fucking cool, but I also don't really care. Like, they've also gone and done Warhammer 40k now. Lord of the Rings is coming, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is a little spoilery, but
I mean, they did My Little Pony, but I don't think it's legal.
Oh, that's what I was going to say, the Transformers. They've done some Hasbro properties, which they did have some My Little Pony stuff. They did have the Transformers, but the Transformers wasn't a secret lair. They were actually like the list cards or whatever.
And
So
I think there was an actual original Transformer card that's not legal too, if I remember right. It came out, I don't know, before
it
or
was
after
it was a
Metal
Dino
Crash,
it was a Dinobot. It was Naya, and it was a Dinobot, and I don't remember exactly what it did, but I remember people. It was Grimlock, I believe. I remember some people that were using it in lieu of Gishath to run their dinosaur decks as a Rule Zero thing. Same with like sort of Dungeons and Dragons. Like I have a copy of that. That was a random pack pull somewhere that is not legal either. But I digress. This was probably this is kind of a like you said, it's getting closer to the middle where they're giving you the ability to brew and do cool shit, but then at the same time limiting the scope a bit. The next thing that came along was something, basically a continuation in Commander Legends 2. In this case, because they had done the year prior, there was Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which was kind of to replace the core set, kind of a meld because Hasbro obviously owns Dungeons and Dragons as well, so they have the whole like rights to meld the two together. And honestly, I'm surprised it took this long for them to do it, because D&D and Magic are basically the same thing, just in different formats.
right.
So this one ended up being something due to do Baldur's Gate. I don't Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Commander Legends 2 Baldur's Gate Edition Part 5.
If they'd stop coming out with 6 billion sets, maybe we could keep them straight,
Yeah, honestly, I'm getting too old to fucking remember all this shit too.
Oh,
I have notes right here, and if I don't write it down, it's not happening. So in this case, they kind of did it's basically kind of more close to, I think, the Friends Forever, because it's like you can't use these things with anything from any other product. Like they're all specifically locked into this product, but it's open to where anything in this product can be put together. So it's called backgrounds. And basically a background is a legendary enchantment that has some lines of text that apply an effect to your commander or commander creatures that you can control. The other half of that are legendary creatures that have choose a background, and those can be paired with any other background. So they were all monocolored, weren't they?
All monocolored, so you can go one color or two color at most. Exactly. Yeah, so it felt kind of similar to the second Coming of Partner, but like you said, set specific to this group of cards at this point only. Future only knows, but yeah, at this point,
I hope it's something they revisit again, because
man, I do.
It's what's funny about it is that when CL2 got spoiled, people were kind of underwhelmed, and a lot of people I talked to were just like, I'm not even gonna buy any of it. I'm not even into it. And I bought a box because I was like, well, I bought a box of CL1, and I got a ton of good pulls, stuff that I didn't even realize I pulled until I looked through my bulk later. That sort of thing. And I hadn't bought a box in a while. Actually, I think that was the only box I bought last year, because just so many products, it's ridiculous. So I remember I ordered it like prior to going to Vegas. I went to Vegas, came back from Vegas, and it was waiting for me, and I was super hyped to come home and open it. And I pulled so many of the cards, like, and then they had the etched foil versions and this and that and the other thing. So there was always like something to pull. But basically, we came down to, like I said, it's one color. You get you can either do mono or two colors. So like, honestly, the first thing that spoke to me is because I was getting into the CPDH scene, is that a lot of them were pretty good for CPDH, because there was a lot of uncommon commanders and then uncommon backgrounds, and that was kind of the ruling. You had to have both be uncommon. So I built like Sivris with Cloakwood Hermit, and then Alora with the Shadow Thieves one, and I've since built Rasad with Swordcoast Sailor. So there was like just a bunch of them that made more sense for that format than they did for CDH, but you've already proven that there's some that work really well with CDH. Your brother played one on stream yesterday with me where I didn't see it coming, and then it happened, and it was like, man, fuck Thrasios, this guy's way better.
I'm telling you, that is, we talk a lot of times when we discuss about brewing unexplored avenues, underused or unsolved. This, I think, is the biggest reason to look into backgrounds. I think there is so much more potential, so much untapped card potential within backgrounds, and it drives me nuts because I can't tell you how many times I've sat down at a CDH game or on spell table, jumped on a CDH, and they say, "Oh, what does this do? What does this do?" And half the people don't even know what they do, and that just bothers me. If you're a brewer at heart, and a new set comes out, and there's new legends, and you can, there's multiple billion friggin' pairings you can choose from this set. It feels like, and to not have even explored that space, it bothers me a little bit. It speaks to me a little bit of I hate to say it, but almost like the net decking mentality. Like, oh, if A, B, and C aren't doing it, it's not good enough. Well, sure, make it so, or just admit that you net deck and move on with life, and that's okay too. Whatever, you do you. But yeah, I think
I don't have a problem with people just taking a list off the internet. I've got tons of lists on Moxfield. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's played one of my lists, and if they have, great. I mean, more power to them. Play it and then change it, make it your own. Right. That's what I do if I'm going into an unknown archetype and I'm like, I want to play this, but I don't really know what to do with it. I'll take Comedian's list or whoever's list I'm looking at that's a known quantity and be like, this works. Obviously, they've proven it works because they got XYZ tournament results. So, like, Winoda's a good example. And then I made changes. And then I talked to other people who were also playing Winota, and it was like, they're like, oh, have you tried this card? Have you tried that card? Oh, wow, that actually makes sense. And then you start, I don't know, eventually, if you are anything like me, you get to a point where you kind of attack these things by yourself and can just think of and or use Scryfall and other tools like we talked about in our last episode, which you can check out on the channel. Once you have the knowledge of those tools and whatever, and you start using them, it becomes a lot more clear, and you can kind of suss out some of the stuff yourself. And then just having another brewer, the other day we were talking about different things and shared lists and talked about stuff and made changes accordingly and blah blah blah. So just having people to bounce ideas off of, not necessarily relying on the best players on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a big piece of it, and I've heard other content creators and other players just talk about the best list and the pilot matter, absolutely. But you're going to play a list that you like, or you've put your own personal touch on, or your own play style on, probably better than a list brewed for, player XYZ, because personal style, personal game play choices matter. So you have to kind of tweak each deck to your style or the way you want to play. It's a game at the end of the day. I mean, sure, people make money on it. Some people more than others. Some people make nothing and just do it for the fun. That's this guy. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to do it your way. And I think that's where I get a lot of enjoyment as a brewer. I know you're the same way. Take a deck, make it your own play style, make it fit your play style, and you'll enjoy playing it so much more. And that's where all the ability to brew from all of these, I mean, there are so many backgrounds and so many different commanders with background that there's a ton of untapped potential there for at least exploring different things and seeing something new, something somebody else has never done, and you might stumble across some gold that nobody thought of.
I mean, I was just saying earlier that, like, I mean, maybe I didn't say it, but when I spoke about the Transformers, like, when I first saw them, I had a pod a couple months back, I don't remember exactly when, but I wanted to do Universes Beyond, so people could pick any of these secret layers or other, types of cards, like the Warhammer or whatever. We ended up with a pod with Warhammer, I did a Street Fighter, somebody did the 5-color from Stranger Things, and then we had it wasn't a Transformer, it was something else. Anyways, we got a pod going, and the Transformers had just been spoiled around that time, so I was like, I actually would like to do just a full Transformer pod. And then I looked at all of them and I was like, these are garbage. Like, none of these are fucking good enough. Like, I'm not even going to waste my time trying to make these work. And then I'm seeing, like, Slicer, and like it got top 16 at a tournament and this and that. I was like, holy shit, how the fuck did that happen? And then somebody else was playing with Soundwave or whatever. It's the little boombox guy. And then I've seen other people playing other ones too. So my friend Joey plays the Rakdos Flame War, and it's just a Rakdos Turbo Nos list, but it, like, the commander actually does do something for the game plan, so it's not terrible. And
I played against that list and him specifically and got my head kicked in by it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes it takes a while for it takes somebody to like look at this thing that's not being looked at and saying, I'm gonna make this work. And then when they do make it work, it turns everybody's head. And I think that's what's been happening with CEDH for the last few years, especially post like pandemic, when everything is shot up in price, but also everybody, more players, more attention to the format, more attention to Magic in general. Magic responding by shitting out way too many fucking products all the fucking time, which makes it to where we can't actually accurately look at any of these things because there's just something new coming. So it's like I take a glance and I'm like, yeah, that's garbage, and I move on to the next thing, and then somebody else goes, hey, I remember the first time I saw Tivit, my buddy Steve came on, he's just a guy on my server, and we were playing, and he's like, oh, I built this new Tivit list, and I was like, that looks fucking shit. What? And then he fucking did the time Steve thing, and I was like, whoa. And I still didn't really like pay it all that much mind. And then like, I don't know, what's it been, a year since he released? That was the beginning of the year. I don't fucking remember. It's been so there's so much, but within the last year or two, that card was released, and then I built a version of it and was like, holy shit, this card's amazing. This deck's amazing. Same thing with Winota. I remember when she got spoiled, like people were not high on her at all, and then she got broken, and here we are. So I think that's probably the main point with any of these sets, is just taking the time and looking more. Because, like I said, I don't even know if Commander Legends 1 is completely solved as far as the partner pairs and the things you can do, especially because every time something new, like I said, with Rog Sai, like Silas was considered a dead card, and then years later they print this other innocuous little 0-drop Kobold that doesn't seem like it does shit, and now this is like one of the at least one of the strongest decks in the format. So it's only a matter of time. Like some of these partners or backgrounds may do another set that has more of them, or there's some other cards that get printed that just make that particular combination super busted.
Yep. One thing I've one thing I've been exploring recently, especially myself and the Squeeze Knees, who's been on your channel a couple times, we like the idea of the fact that you can play an enchantment in the command zone. So we're trying to work on something that can kind of, there's always polymorph decks that exist. Well, there are certain cards that you can polymorph an enchantment into another enchantment, and Omniscience is a card. So I don't know. We're thinking about some stuff we're trying with that.
You could definitely do what's that card? That's not Chaos Warp. There is Chaos Warp, but then there's that newer one.
6-drop Chaos something, the red one. There's a couple of
Wild
them,
Magic Surge or some shit where it's like you could exile your own thing and then polymorph it into.
I think Wild Magic Surge is only your opponents, but there is there's a 1 red and 5 sorcery. You can pick like a land, a creature, enchantment, artifact, something, and then essentially polymorph into those. So we're exploring some different avenues with that. But yeah, having an enchantment in the command zone is interesting too. So
and that's, I mean, I spoke about Oathbreaker earlier, but it's kind of the same sort of idea where that's a planeswalker with its signature spell. This is a commander or a creature with this particular background, and changing their background gives them different abilities. So it's kind of like, choose your own adventure, choose your own RPG build, blah blah blah. Like, I kind of like where they're going with that. And there was somebody else that I saw somewhere that was talking about, I don't know if it was a format already or if they were just spitballing, but I want to say it was something about Arsenal or something, and it was basically commander plus equipment in the command zone, which I also think is kind of a cool idea. Imagine having like Sunforger in your command zone, like, or Luxior, and you have a Planeswalker, or there's
another card game that I've heard of recently that I've never attempted. Some of my friends have tried it, and it sounds like something that they're kind of doing in their axis of games, but I could be absolutely wrong on that. I apologize. Yeah, that's the one. I don't understand it. I've seen like 3 minutes of gameplay. I had a buddy pseudo explain it to me, and some of it went in one ear and out the other, and some of it sounded kind of interesting, but maybe it's something along those lines. Don't they have like some kind of equipment type card that they start with? So yeah, I mean, maybe that's our time, Wizards. Let's get it going. I don't have time to learn any other card games. I remember a few from way back in the day. I used to play like the BattleTech trading card game and Wyvern and Blade Runner, and I think, or not Blade Runner, Netrunner, I think was, I don't know. Anywho, I've given them all up and I just play Magic, so I can only afford time to play one game poorly, so I chose Magic.
Yeah, I'm not, given the depth of our experience and time with the game, I'm not trying to play anything else either. So I hear you there. Either way, I guess the sort of
equipment in the command zone would be awesome. That would be very cool.
Yeah, so I mean, these kinds of things, people are coming up with stuff. Like, we may see more of it, and then when Wizards catches on, then they do more. But I do hope to see more of this in the future. Obviously, it's not something that they can print into standard, but it is something that they can print. I mean, even if they just do a new, like, set of 4 or 5 commander decks, and they just put those in each one, and we just get a few extra options, like, that's cool. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Even then, if they did those, and then they made them, you know, one, like the creatures are 1 color, but the enchantments are 2 color, and so we can get some 3 color builds utilizing these old ones too. Like, that could be cool. So
absolutely.
But I think that's enough on that one. So this kind of leads us up to current day. History lesson is basically over. We're coming up. We're in 2023. Soon. I mean, we've already seen some spoilers, but soon, coming down the pipeline, is the next Phyrexian set that I think. There's the Aftermath too, isn't there? So we're
remember.
There. I think that there's this one and then one more. Basically, all last year was all of Dominaria's sets that were dealing with the history of it, and then the more current day problem with the Phyrexians, and then Phyrexia All Will Be One was basically they're fucking taking over now. March of the Machines is like they're really. It's like I think it's the Marvel Infinity War for Magic, basically, at this point. So, it's doesn't have partner per se. It doesn't have backgrounds. It doesn't have anything that we've talked about already. What they're doing, and this is really where I get the comic book reference, is they're doing these, like, it feels like a comic book crossover, but it's like a mashup of known legendary creatures on a single card. And the first time I saw it, it fucked with me. Like, I think everybody thought that they were fake to begin with.
Yeah, I know I did.
The first one I saw was Thalia and the Gitrog monster, and it's Thalia riding on the back of the Gitrog monster, which is fucking ridiculous. The Gitrog monster just eats everything in sight, so I don't understand how the fuck she did it, but apparently she befriended it. And so you get kind of this pseudo meld of abilities from each creature. So on that particular card, it's like you get not the good Thalia where it just gives the non-creature attacks, but the kind of worse Thalia where like creatures come in tapped. So you get that effect, but then you also get the worst part of the Gitrog monster where you have to sack stuff to draw cards, but it's not like all the time. It's only on combat attack or something to that effect, like attack, sack a thing, draw a card. Not great. But people are super excited for it. It's also Abzan, so it's Gitrog was Golgari, and then Thalia was always mono white. So now you've got them squished together. They're now an Abzan creature. They kind of sort of combine each other. The power toughness 4/4, which is weird because Gitrog was a 5/5, and she was.
Is he 5/5 or 6/6? Either way,
one or the other, 5/5 or 6/6, and then she was a 2/1 with first strike, and then
I think this version of her was a 3/2, but either way, it doesn't make sense.
Right,
Yeah.
like both of them were off, and like I could see it being like a 4/5 or like a
5/4 or
5/4,
something. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like make more sense, but it's a 4/4 for whatever reason. And I don't remember the Gitrog had Death Touch. I don't think it has Death Touch. She had First Strike, or does it have? I think it might be First Strike and Death Touch.
It has First Strike and Death Touch on the new printing. Yeah.
So they at least got that part right. So you're basically just taking these known legendary creatures, smashing them together. We also got Drana and Linvala, which is fucking weird.
Right.
And there's
Yargle and Multani and Slimefoot and Squee, all sorts of them.
Goro and Satoru. That one I actually kind of am into, but I'm waiting for more spoilers to see like which one I'm gonna brew. I know that these are gonna be good for brewing because I like 3-color commanders. That's pretty much my bread and butter most of the time, and you're already going to get the win cons that come with those colors. It's just a matter of how do you fit them into the game plan of what this commander's doing, and that's really all there is to it. We haven't seen too many of them. I think we've seen like 5 or 6, so not enough to go on to like really say if it's good for the format, if it's bad for the format, yada yada. But I think, obviously, as I say, I'm kind of biased. I like 3 colors, so more 3-color commanders is good for me. The idea of squishing them together, not too bad. I am running the Drana and Linvala in that new Shanid list that I put together, which I guess I haven't mentioned on here, but you'll see it on the channel at some point, I'm sure. It's cool because it like turns off everybody else's activated abilities, but then you get to steal them essentially. So yeah, like there's some cool stuff going on there, and it's an interesting take on it, and it's not taking up the extra slot in your command zone, yada yada yada. So there are some pros to that. But again, it's kind of one of those things I don't know. You have any other thoughts?
Yeah, they've done some weird design choices on this set, and again, like you said, we haven't obviously seen all of them, so who knows what is yet to come. But there are still single colored legends that they're coming out with, like the Jin Gataxias is mono blue. So far, they've spoiled. There's some cards that like Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. I think it's blue white if I remember right, and it doesn't.
Yeah, it's Azurius, but it's white, and then it
I think it's blue on the backside. Or
yeah, it's blue and white on the backside. I don't remember how you flip it, but it's kind of cool. I've seen some decks already built with it, and
yeah, I mean
it's kind of up my alley.
5-color Omnath that's coming out, so it's not like they're sticking to any hard and fast rules with this build. So I'm very curious to see what other exciting and interesting cards they've come up with for us. But it's hard to get a handle on this set just because there isn't like a format or a formula they're sticking to with these cards. So.
Like I said, it's very much like the Infinity War, where it's like anything fucking goes. Everything's squished together in one thing.
They're doing weird reprints too. Like I think Ragavan and the old Atraxa are coming out in this set. It's strange.
Yeah, when we just got the new Atraxa not that long ago.
Right. Although they do have different symbols, I think, on those cards, so maybe they'll just be in a special release product or commander, or God only knows what.
It's always hard to tell too with the spoilers, because sometimes, like for a while there, they were doing those. I don't think they're doing them anymore, but they were doing those theme boosters, which was before set boosters. It still was going while set boosters were around, but then now collector's boosters, and there's so many other fucking do-to-dos. But theme boosters used to have like, it was a pre-pack of like kind of stapley bullshit cards. I bought a few of them. They were never good, but they had a chance, or they had one. It was kind of like a list where they had like one slot where it could be one of these new cards.
Mm.
And I think they've now put that to the list and or collector boosters. I've only bought a handful of collector boosters over time, and I did pack pull stuff that way. Like I got Perry, who was one of the face commanders on one of the precons from New Capenna, but I got him in a set or collector booster. So like you can kind of, it's a weird way to like get cards out of other products that you wouldn't normally be able to get without buying specific products, but
Sure.
not necessarily
also,
the best thing either.
I think they've also spoiled some new what are those called, planes chase cards for this set that have come out. That's something I have done some of the plane chase back in the day in some casual groups, so it was kind of fun, but definitely had a big chaos element to it. So, but yeah, I've seen some of the new ones of those, and I've noticed maybe, I mean, with the cards they've spoiled so far, there's been at least 3 different set symbols showing. So yeah, who knows if they're box toppers or
it's impossible to know. And then they might even do some kind of, I don't know. There's probably gonna be some kind of standalone plane chase thing, because the last time they did a couple of releases of it, and then they did a couple anthologies. I've played it because I have an app on my phone that just has all of them, and you just can randomly do the thing and switch them or whatever. So I would just kind of put my phone on camera so everybody could see what plane we were on, and then go from there. I did it on the channel once at least, but I've also done it outside of recording. It's a lot of fun. It adds a lot more chaos to things, and if these new ones are something you can add to the pool, like, I'm all for it. It's just you have to kind of expect to either have a plane that automatically projects one player ahead to where they win, or it just fucks everyone, or it just fucks you in particular, and 2 or 3 people are fine. Like, it's just the effects are very random, and you can't really predictively like plan for any of it because it's so random. Like, you either just get the plane that fucking alley-oops you, or you get a plane that bends you over, and that's like all
right. Yeah, it almost adds like a board game element to the game itself in a weird way. Yeah.
Well, and then when you roll to try and change, you get the free roll, and then if you don't get it, then you have to pay a tax, and you have to keep paying more tax cumulatively to try and get off that plane. So sometimes you spend your whole turn just trying to roll off the plane, and then if you hit the chaos roll, then some other effect happens, and that's either good or bad depending. So it adds a lot of layers of complexity, but it's also a lot of fun. So I recommend it, and if you get some of the new ones, I'm sure that's something that would be worth checking out. So moving on to the last new bit, spoiler season is never ending, as we have said more than once on the channel. They've also been spoiling the like summer-ish release, which I guess this is like the replacement for the core set this year. I don't know. But it's Lord of the Rings, which they said they were going to do sometime last year. They announced it, that it was coming. And I was super hyped because Lord of the Rings is my shit. I love the books. I love the movies. I've been a huge fan. I've played tons of games. It's always been top of my list. Like, I like it better than Star Wars, better than Harry Potter, better than any other fantasy thing that's come along. It's always been my jam. So we've only gotten a handful of spoilers, not a ton, but there are already some partner with cards. The only one that I know for sure that I can tell you the name of is Sam, Loyal Attendant, which is Selesnya, and it like does some shit with food.
It makes a food at the beginning of combat on your turn. You create a food token, and activated abilities of food you control cost 1 colorless less to activate. It's a 3 mana 2/4. Ooh.
So, unless they provide some sort of payout at some point for gaining life that's relevant, I don't think that's ever going to matter. Food is never going to be relevant until that happens. In my opinion, I don't play anything that creates food tokens. I never have, because it's just a useless mechanic. I can see it being a little better in maybe more combat heavy scenarios like casual or Pauper, but
there's the one artifact creature that sees a lot of play in
the worker
Magda.
that makes the extra shit.
Yeah, but it's not. They don't play it because it's making food. They play it because it's making treasures and an extra artifact to be able to tap to untap. Blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly.
So yes, they have made some cards that do interact with food. It's just not in a way that's
goose thing that's like a 1 mana O2 flyer that can use them as mana or something.
There's that, and then there's some other ones I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. Oh, yeah, whatever the case, it's not great. But so he partners with Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. We haven't actually seen that, so we don't know what colors it's going to be. We don't know if this is going to end up being a 3-color or 4-color or what. They've teased other legendaries. Truth be told, I'm super disappointed already. I'm hoping that more of the previews that come out make the set worth my time, because I really want to buy some of this product, even if it is just to like put some of the Lord of the Rings cards in a fucking binder just to have them because they're cool. Yeah, but honestly, the Sauron, not good. The Is It Gandalf, I don't think it's very good. I mean, it's playable, but it's not good.
It wins with Isochron Scepter, so there you go.
Yeah, but Isochron Scepter's like a shitty win con these days. Like, it's just not reliable most of the time, I don't think. But, you know, it's still there. It's still a thing. And I'm not, definitely not trying to gatekeep. Like, if you like that, go for it. Great. I'm not, I didn't see the Gollum. I'm not too, the Aragon and the, what's her name? The Selesnya one. Yeah, like, I didn't think that was very good. Like, just none of them are good. Honestly, the very best card I've seen so far is Reprieve, which is basically just Remand, but in white. It returns target spell to owner's hand, and it replaces itself because you draw a card. Any
Doom has some application, right?
Sure. I've already put that in Shanid because it's a legendary land that'll draw me a card, and it's arguably worth using in World Warger decks. Although some people are not high on World Warger. I like World Warger. It's fine. I'm going to put it in those decks, but it just has a pinging ability that you could use every time you loop the World Gorge Dragon and kill people with, and then it also has a very expensive board wipe if you get into a stalled out game. So
sure, and I would say I mean, we'll see what else they print. I do find it interesting that so far that they've spoiled 2 different Sam cards. There's already a separate Frodo card, so we're going to get at least 2 Frodos. At least 2
some
Sams
of them are mono white. I think there was a Gollum that's mono black. Sauron's Rakdos.
Yeah, Frodo's white and black. We'll see. I'm excited for the main reason I'm so far excited for the set is the basic lands, because they are gorgeous.
The maps.
I will buy many of them, and that's it. That's my favorite basic land.
Well, and then there's the One Ring, which is arguably a very good card, but it's kind of high costed. Then again, it's not. Like, people always say, oh, it's 4 CMC, that's too much, but then I always play a bunch of cards that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 CMC, and I still manage to cast them all the fucking time in CDH.
Cheated into play so easily, being an artifact. I mean, like the One Ring plus Mind Over Matter equals game over, most likely. So there are scenarios where that one could be CDH viable for sure.
I think definitely there's gonna be some play. I think the thing that caused controversy though is that they have that One Ring.
Oh yeah, the 1/1 printing, 1 of 1.
There's a 1 of 1 printing that's somewhere in packs somewhere, and whoever finds it is gonna be quote unquote rich. Only if somebody's willing to pay what they're asking, I suppose. But
Or if they're willing to sell it, or they keep their precious.
right. For me, I could take it or leave it. I don't really care. There's already, going to be a billion different printings of everything in the set. They've already shown a bunch of different showcase arts and full arts and this and that. So we haven't seen enough of this to really know. But we do know that more partners are coming. However, It looks like partner with. So this is back to the safe spot where they're strictly there. And I honestly think that this was a set where they should have done the Friends Forever again. I mean, obviously for the Hobbits and whatever, but they could have just called it like Fellowship, and anyone with the Fellowship can be partnered together, and that would have been.
Is there any chance we don't see a Merry and Pippin that can partner together? Come on.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be there. There's going to be Gimli. There's going to be Legolas. There's going to be Aragorn and like by himself probably, and then also Boromir. Anybody that was in the Fellowship. I'm assuming they're all going to be printed, unless arguably they could just have a 5-color The Fellowship card and have like a billion lines of text on it.
I'd be super pumped if they come up with the different like Nazgul that you could partner together. That would be sick.
Yeah, you could have like Fellowship, and then you could have what do they call the fucking Sauron? The Dark Lord. I mean, what are they? The Dark Lord's forces
and all that stuff. God only knows what they come up with. Oh, what's the big spider's name? We could have the spider from the Hobbit, or from the Hobbit, or from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So.
I don't remember her name.
I love it.
Ishkanah is popping in my head, but that's fucking already a magic card.
Is it Shelob? I don't know, man. It's been a good 20-ish years since I've read all the books, and I need to do it again. But I'm with you. It is definitely my jam when it comes to the fantasy realm. The Hobbit, the original cartoon from I think the 70s-ish.
Late 70s, yeah.
Yeah, it's still my favorite animated movie.
It's a little before my time, but I did see it.
It's before my time too, but it doesn't matter. It's still man.
Yeah, no, it was still good. The movies are amazing. The new show that came out was okay. Anyway, so we don't know what's going to happen exactly with that. It's coming down the pipeline. We will know more, and maybe we'll do some kind of recap about this sort of thing, down the road in a couple years if we're still doing this, and talk about it again.
So the last piece of it that can kind of be thrown into this realm is the companion mechanic. Pseudo makes, with very specific design limitations, can be like a second commander in the command zone. They did super nerf it by, this is a case of reading the card explains the card is false because they added the 3 commander tags to put it into your hand before you can cast it. But there are some of those, and there's very few of them that have seen play or are very relevant yet. Again, it's something that could probably be explored more, but it is another slight consideration for this kind of the dual commander ability. It's kind of a small variation of it, but it does exist.
It does fit in thematically with the way we've discussed everything, because it is another card in another zone. But
I remember it can even see the mashup. Like I think there was, I get wrong on this, but like Lucas and Will, I think, were the two in the Friends Forever that could use Luris as the commander. I could be wrong on the ones that were.
I don't remember which ones it was, but yes, Luris was the companion. Companion still works. It's still a thing. You can still put it in the companion zone. You still get 98 cards instead of 99 in your list. It still counts towards your count, but it was originally designed to just be cast from that zone. But you could basically only cast it the one time, and then it would go to your graveyard or whatever. So it wasn't a repeatable thing like the signature spell or any of these backgrounds or other things where they can be repeated. However, it was printed into standard, which was probably dumb. They probably should have just done it in one of these supplemental products, and it would have never been an issue. But because it was printed into standard, and I don't even think it's in standard anymore, so they had to fix it, and to fix it they reworked the ruling. So instead of casting it from the zone, you pay 3, put it in your hand, and then you cast it. So now all of them are fucking worthless, and at that rate pretty much everybody just put them in the 99, and that's where I usually see them. I have seen like Rebel was famous for making Sisay Gigantha. And then I've seen people like Dawn Raker Thrasios is literally Zerta with other stuff. And then Luris has been played as a companion, but then also as in the 99. I play him in the 99 of some. I've played Gigantha in the 99. I've played Zerta in the 99. Lutri was also immediately banned because it was just, if you're in those colors, it's an automatic copy spell, and that was kind of busted. But I think he could be unbanned now because of the way they reworked it. Who's going to pay 6 mana for a fucking copy spell?
I agree. The other thing that's interesting about them is they are legendary creatures, so they could just be played as the commanders. So, I mean, that's something that I don't think has been explored enough, truthfully.
I agree, but at the same time, I think because they were designed to be a companion to something else, that they were not designed to be powerful enough to be standalone. But I didn't want to get too much into that because it's kind of irrelevant, but it is a mechanic that they tried to do this sort of thing with, so I guess it bears mentioning. So we've gotten through the history lesson, we've gotten to current events, we've talked about everything that there is to talk about with this, so I don't know how you want to score this or whatever, but like how do we feel about the individual mechanics? I mean, we've kind of shared our thing, but just to like summarize, I mean, OG partner, pretty much the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's not much of an argument to be made. The OG partner is probably the best, because especially now that you can do Grixis only or 3-color or 4-color options. When they open that up, it has the largest pool of cards and abilities and deck design, so it is definitely the strongest.
But I would also argue that I think so. It's the best, bar none. It is the best because of the additional stuff that they've done over the years to add to the pool. But I would also say that I think the backgrounds are a really cool design shift and something I'd like to see more of, even if they do, like I said, maybe at some point they do Oathbreaker officially, so then we can have those signature spells that are actually called signature spells or something. And like, I don't know, maybe that's too limiting because right now it's completely open, but they could do something along those lines, or like the arsenal thing where there's equipment, or maybe vehicles, or just an artifact of your choosing, or whatever. So
yeah, tons of design space still allowed for sure, which is, it's cool. I mean, the game's only growing, it's not shrinking.
Right. So I think and then to a lesser extent, I like the smaller pools of cards, like the Friends Forever. That's fine. I just wish that if they're going to keep it limited to a set, that like at some point they either errata it to just make them partner. Like the partner with, you can't. Like they're designed together. But like the Friends Forever, there's no reason why you can't play Will with fucking Thrasios. Like what fucking difference does it make? Like. And in that instance, I wouldn't mind seeing it to where, like I said, at some point they just errata it and say, like, if it's got the word partner on it, it's just slap them all together. Fuck it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that could happen, right? Or, even potentially later on to where it's like you could have partners that both have backgrounds, maybe. So you have
that'd be sick.
4 cards in the command zone.
Up there.
Yeah, I mean
you can technically have 3 right now, right? You can technically have 3 with the partners and or backgrounds and a companion, but can you play multiple companions if your deck limitation build is built in a nature where you can do that? Can you put multiple companions?
I don't think it's possible. I think the ruling is only 1.
Okay.
But regardless, to that point, I was playing with Death earlier, and he played Tevish, Jessica, and apparently in Oathbreaker, each one is required to have its own signature spell. So he had 4 cards in the command zone. He did, for flavor, he did Sot's Will and Jessica's Will, which arguably one of those is good and the other is not. But, it is what it is. Those are, I think, the only 2 Planeswalkers with partners, so that was the only... that's going to be the only instance where that happens. But in the future, they could potentially do more Planeswalkers with partner, or do more of this with partner, or, again, have 2 commanders with partner and choose a background so that you can have 2 more backgrounds. And maybe that's how you get to 5 colors or 4 colors or whatever, but at least it's more interesting than just slapping 2 commanders together and having a 4-color pile of good stuff.
Right.
Because maybe those backgrounds and or commanders push you in a design direction or a building direction that is more exciting. So I think
I'd love to see more either, and this is an interesting space. They could go 2-color enchantments for the backgrounds and leave monocolored creatures, or vice versa. So,
or have both of them be 2-color, and then you can get 4-color pairs that way. But it's like different. I don't know. I think that invariably, with competitive at least, you're still going to fall into those same build traps where people are just going to be like, okay, well, this is still just 4-color good stuff. It's just I'm not Thrasios Tymna. Now I'm this guy and this guy and these two backgrounds, or this
Right.
guy with this background and blah blah blah. But again, I think that the backgrounds, they were arguably less powerful than having a second whole creature. In a sense that, you know, you only have the one commander, so like your spells that get turned on by having your commander on the battlefield are sort of lessened because, you know, you've only got one instead of two.
I think the backgrounds do count as your commander, except for like Mox Amber. I think it has to be a legendary creature. I could be wrong, but having like one of the background enchantments in play does count as your commander in play for Fierce Guardianship and the like. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you might be right. And I do know Mox Amber is just creatures.
Yeah, and arguably you could have two creatures in the command zone with backgrounds as well, as you now know.
Oh, and there's another free rock that could be printed. It would be like Mox Amber, but it'll be Mox. What's a gem they haven't used yet?
I don't know.
Mox. What's that? Mox Cubic
Zirconia.
Zirconia.
There we go.
And it'll be add mana equal to the legendary permanent that isn't a creature you control,
Yeah, there
kind
you
of
go.
thing. And then you got another free rock because you're
Yeah,
playing the style
planeswalkers
of
would
deck.
play it, enchantments. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of the version of commanders? Like what, or the partner mechanic, or the partner pantheon of all the things we talked about? What's your favorite?
Partner, the OG for sure. It just opens up so many doors. And then once they opened up the floodgates with CL1, it was over. But it's a very close second with the backgrounds. I really like that mechanic. I just don't necessarily like what we have to use right now. Like, I would like to see another set down the road that adds more to it, to where we're like, oh, now so many of these guys are so much more busted. Because like you said, now this one came with 2-color enchantments, so now you have the option to be 3-color, and that just opens up a whole new option. So that's kind of mine. What's your favorite?
For me, it's definitely the backgrounds, because I think it's twofold. It is because they're not as obviously powerful as partner. I mean, that's
Right.
I mean, as we discussed, partner is the clear and present strongest. I mean, there are arguments for like Nagilas or Winotas or whatever that could be without any of the above that could be stronger. But as far as the dual stuff, partner is the strongest. I tend to lean as the brewer into stuff that's more of the underexplored mechanics, and I like surprising people with unexplored or unexpected avenues. So
Right.
yeah, for me, it's backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a really close second. There's not one that sticks out to me where I'm like, there wasn't one that stuck out to me immediately where I was like, okay, I'm gonna fucking break this and blah blah blah. Like, until I started exploring the CPDH side of it. In that case, I'm very high on these over the OG partners, because OG partners aren't uncommon, so they're kind of trash. So if you're going from a CPH point of view, I'm very much the backgrounds were the best thing to happen. I mean, there are still the second printing of partners that are single or monocolor. Those ones, there's still plenty of options as far as that goes to brew around. But I really like the backgrounds when you're just sticking to the uncommons and you only got commons in your 99. Like, there's some that Rasad deck that I have is pretty strong, given that format. But
sure.
Trying to play that in CEDH, no, unfortunately.
I
No.
will say I do hold out a tiny bit of hope that the rest of this Lord of the Rings set will give us something that will surpass my love of backgrounds to be this and being number one, just because I am such a Lord of the Rings homer. So
I mean, I feel you. I really want the set to be something amazing, and I'm sad at some of what I've seen already, so I'm hoping for the best. But I know for a fact, like, every single set, even when I've looked at it and been like, this set feels underpowered, I always find something. There will be some staples in there that'll go into multiple decks. There will be some cards that I want to build around. But will it be, a Frodo or whatever? Probably not, given what I've seen so far. But, again, it may end up being, maybe Merry and Pippin are fucking busted. Or maybe, like, we get a new version of Doran off of a Tree Folk that's like Great Beard or whatever the fuck is name. Treebeard. Like, that would be cool. Like, maybe Treebeard is the new, multicolor big butt commander that just kicks ass. Like, who knows? We'll see. So how do we feel? Do we feel that I think we kind of said already, but do you think that the OG partner mechanic was a mistake? Too powerful? Like maybe should have never happened?
Yeah, I think I could definitely argue that it was probably a bit too powerful. Um, and it could just be the mechanic itself is fine. I think some of the cards printed within it were just a little untested in the power capabilities. I mean, that's my opinion. I think Thrasios is probably a little undercosted at 2.
Yeah.
You know, Timna as a 3-mana 2/2 is a little maybe too good. Crom is probably right as a 5-mana 4/4 flyer with haste, but it's still pretty good. I mean, that's I think so. The argument isn't that they're too powerful as far as the mechanic. Maybe just a few of the design choices were a little too pushed.
I mean, even if you could probably leave Thrasios at 2 at just Simic, but make his scry ability require either a tap, or I mean, a tap would just immediately make him not playable. People wouldn't even play it anymore. If it wasn't a tap, then maybe make it cost a green and a blue and 1 to scry. You know, even if it's even if it's not 4 mana, but it's just you have to have those colors, it would slow him. Like he wouldn't be unplayable, but he would be a lot less of a bitch. You know, outside of when he has Seedborn.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing too. They could have definitely. I'm glad they didn't nerf it. I have to say I am not a fan of all of the new do this or it only triggers once per turn kind of things that they've seemed to love to staple on the new stuff.
I hate that because it's just so many infinite combos that I could be putting together that are new and interesting.
I'm so excited, and then I get to that line of text. I'm like, oh, this is trash. So,
or it's not. Maybe not trash. Like she needs a good example. Like if they would have done that with that it wouldn't be playable. Like because it's she draws or he. I don't know if it's a she or a he, but they draw a card on any legendary land or legendary creature ETBing on your battlefield. And if it said triggers only once per turn, I wouldn't even have built it. But because you can do whatever you want, it's like play a land, draw a card, play a legendary, draw a card, play another legendary, draw a card. I'm into it.
I gotta say, from watching the last episode that you were filming, how is that not a knight? Come on.
No, I mean obviously it's a knight, but I mean why isn't it a soldier?
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
That was what I was saying. It's a knight. I was saying why can't it be a soldier? I was pissed because I'm like, dude, I have Myrel, I have Adeline, I have all these cool legendary creatures that make soldiers. Actually, I don't even think Adeline does. Adeline, which is stupid too. Adeline makes humans. Yeah. Yep. It's like, what the fuck? Can't we just get some like universality? Whatever the fucking word is, but
tokens makes zombies. There's the occasional troll or vampire, but like 90% of black creatures that are tokens are zombies, for Christ's sake.
That's the problem with fucking humans, is that like there's humans and then there's human soldiers and then there's human citizens and then human warriors and like
halflings or whatever. Jesus,
isn't a warrior a soldier? Can't a citizen be a soldier? Can't any human be a fucking soldier? Just give me soldiers. But anyway, yeah. If it would have been, it would have been nice that she was a soldier because there's already a lot of soldier synergy like I built into the deck. It's the same with Winota and some other decks that I have too, like Naali and the Queen. A lot of my Boros lists have that same because I just love my Adeline and Myrel. Like they're so good. They just put bodies in, and bodies are good in CDH because people are playing little dorks and shit. I'll swing my 1/1s into your dork all day because you're not going to block, and if you do, you're losing mana. So
great, yeah.
I mean, I know combat isn't the strongest thing to be doing in CDH either, but there's so many stacks decks out there that like enough of it to where 2 people playing stacks just shut a table down and then you're just beating people's face.
Yep.
And I don't mind winning like that, especially if you can do it quickly.
Not at all.
So I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think the OG partner was probably a mistake in the way the mechanic isn't bad. It's a great brewing space, but they were probably a little too pushed. Maybe they shouldn't have been multicolor the way they were. And they did, I think, fix that with going to monocolors. But then also allowing you to brew in those 3-color spaces with the old ones. I think that's what fixed it. It wasn't so much that they fixed partner. It's that they gave us a pool to where it's not just 4-color piles everywhere. And
I could see an interesting argument too for if they wanted to try and improve upon partner, maybe change the commander tax with partners. You know, the first time you cast it, it costs what it costs. The second time, maybe if it's got partner, it costs an additional 3 instead of 2.
Or And instead of making them individual taxes, you could just make it one tax. So it doesn't matter
Yeah,
which
that-
one you cast, you still got to pay 2 more.
Yeah, that could
I
be a thing
would
too.
fucking suck, man. Paying 3 mana for Timna and then turning around and paying, 7 mana for Krom? Fuck that.
Right?
Fuck
Tell me
that.
it wouldn't fix it though. You'd be
Yeah, it
you'd
would
be
break.
essentially
It would break
limited
it to
one
the
or
point
other.
where nobody plays it anymore. That's all.
Nah,
that would
they'd
happen.
still be played. They'd still be played. I think you would just have to basically all in on one or the other for the most part. So
Yeah, which is kind of what ends up happening with the other ones. But again, like I said, it was probably too powerful to begin with. But I don't hate it. As much as I talk shit on Thrasios for 4-color good stuff piles, it is what it is. Like, people had to be creative enough to come up with those. It just feels very solved when you get to the 4+ color, to where you're not really, the staples are there. You're putting in 20 cards. That's
It
your
is a little weird.
customization.
it is a little weird. We went from the power creep. I mean, obviously the original alpha beta stuff had some stuff that was beyond busted, noted. But we went from the power creep of everything slowly getting stronger and stronger throughout the years to all of a sudden commander specific products have gotten weaker and weaker with each type of printing. They started at the top and they've had to scale it all back. So
Well, they were kind of janky from like the original. I think the original printing was in 2011. From 2011 to 2016, they were kind of, or up to 2015, I should say. They were kind of janky, kind of weird. Like, they did the Planeswalker experiment with like the single color OG Teferi and Obnix and blah blah blah. And then I really like the experience counters thing, and they've only done a couple more cards that cared about them. Like, I know there was the Mardu guy, Kelsey, and I think it is the pinging guy. Like, he cared about him, and then there's been a couple other ones that have done it, but they just weren't that good.
yeah, that's something that definitely.
It was also not really well balanced.
Yeah,
because in that set it was like, what's her name? The Golgari one. What's her name? Marin. Yeah, Marin. Because she, like, you got the experience counters anytime a creature died, so you got the experience counter super fast, and then you could just recur shit every turn.
Yeah,
Like,
even if it didn't have it, you could recur it to hand or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
that one was pretty good.
that one was pretty busted. Like, I made the mistake of buying Daxos, which ended up being kind of shitty, but it's a cool concept, but it just doesn't work. And
Yeah,
then
there's more they could do there. They also really haven't pushed, to my knowledge, any really commander specific product with energy in mind.
they
that
haven't
kinda
done
surprised me.
anything with energy since Kaladesh.
Yeah,
Like,
that surprised me.
Did they still? I don't even think they had it in 8. Did they have it in Aether Revolt?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. That was right when I came back to playing the game. But I remember energy being a cool concept, and I would like to see them do it again. They just can't do it in a standard set because it was broken as fuck. But
what
in Commander, it would be fine.
Leagues, you know?
Yeah, you could throw a new set with a bunch of energy in there, and it would be fine. I mean, honestly, they could probably figure out a way to make it less busted than it was, and make it work. But I digress.
Yeah, I would love to see something with those. I think that's an underexplored utility that exists in Magic already. That I don't know why we don't have commander specific products for it. It makes me sad.
I mean, it's only a matter of time. They may touch on it again, but that is like a full 7 years ago. Same year that those precons came out is when that came out. So, and they've done the experience thing a couple times. They haven't touched energy at all. But I also think there was Aetherworks Marvel and like other things that were just kind of busted. I have a lot of the cards with energy on them, and none of them are very good. There's just a few that were just like, with Paradox Engine and whatnot too, that came out in Aether Revolt, like you could do some crazy shit. But all right, so last question to wrap it up. If you had the option to remove all of the restrictions and just say every one of the cards that has the word partner on it can be partnered with anything else that has the word partner, and then this is including the Friends Forever, if they just errated all of them to say partner, would you be down for that, or do you think that that's a bad idea?
Personally, I think it would be a bad idea, and the only reason I'm thinking that is because, again, I think I'd be a little afraid we'd end up swinging further back toward the gatekeeper side of it, where if you're not playing this combo and this combo, you're silly. Whereas right now, they're being a little nerfed on some of those. It leaves a little more brewing space, a little more balance, so to speak, to CEDH. Yeah. But that's where I stand on it. How about yourself?
So obviously the partner with ones kind of can't work because they're so strictly to I mean, I guess Brawlin could work with, something else that's draw. I mean, Brawlin with Thrasios probably works fine because, draw cards, but that's discard, so maybe not. Maybe it's
imagine
maybe it's
Brawlin
Thrasios Shabraz. There you go. So every time you draw off Thrasios with your Seedborn Muse and whatever, your shark just gets bigger. That could work. So I mean, but generally speaking, those ones probably don't work. The Friends Forever could be errated to partner; it'd be fine. Obviously, the backgrounds don't work really well either, unless you just said, those creatures now also have choose a background. That'd be kind of cool, though. I wouldn't mind maybe that being in the future where we get some enchantments that just are backgrounds and, or like not, you know what I'm saying? Like it could be applied like to partners somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That could be kind of cool to get those options of those, because then instead of being Thrasios with Tymna or Crom or whatever, it's Thrasios with some background that actually specifically helps Thrasios' game plan to, benefit from drawing cards or benefit from scrying or whatever.
They could print, similar to what they've done with the Smash Up kind of thing, they could print a new background or a new commander set or a new commander creature that has partner and background, and that would fix it. And just make the creature itself something very underwhelming, and then it would open up the background ability to be added.
Yeah, kind of like that Faceless one, where it's kind of just this vanilla blah creature that does nothing, but like you can have to choose 2 backgrounds. And
so you can 3/3 background creature type for Volo's Journal.
Yeah. Well, but then also just a stupid, basically a blank slate creature that can now get a bunch of things applied to it with those backgrounds. Well, they could even make, new things like, some kind of enchantment type that provides, buffs of some sort. Like, attach this one to this guy, and it's like an equipment in the sense that, like, he gets +2/+2, and then trample or whatever. And then
you
this
make
one...
an interesting point, too. What if they printed a commander creature that has choose 2 backgrounds?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, you could have 2 backgrounds, so then you have... It could either be colorless or it could just be a monocolored commander that has some basic bullshit abilities, or maybe it's just a vanilla with like some kind of evasion. It's just a 2/2 flyer, no other abilities, but choose 2 backgrounds, and then those 2 backgrounds kind of make it, and then it's kind of build your own commander in a sense. And that's kind of
cool.
That's a cool idea too. But yeah, I mean, I would brew in that space too, but I definitely don't think that making every single thing that's out there right now available to partner with each other would be a good idea either. So.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty much covers it. I think we got through everything we wanted to. I hope any of you that were listening, if you're not familiar with everything that we've talked about, you maybe learned something. And we tried to provide some insight to our thoughts on everything as well. I think we pretty much agree that it's not a bad design space. It was just done maybe kind of poorly to begin with. And it's kind of finding its way, and it's finding a lot of different variations along the way, and it keeps things fresh, and that's all we can ask for.
Absolutely.
So we'll keep our eyes on spoilers. We may revisit this topic in the future after we have seen more of those in the coming months, but until next time, we will see you guys later. Hope you have a good evening and enjoyed yourself, and don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and maybe share with a friend. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Take care, everybody.
Laters.